The movie King Ivory tells the story of the devastating impact of fentanyl, known on the streets as King Ivory, a synthetic opioid that has become a deadly pandemic across American communities. Set in the heartland of Oklahoma, specifically Tulsa, the film weaves together multiple interconnected storylines that demonstrate how this dangerous drug affects every level of society, from law enforcement to criminals to innocent families, caught in its destructive wake. The narrative centers on Layne West, a dedicated drug enforcement officer who has spent years battling the criminal organizations that flood his city with narcotics. James Badgedale brings a weathered intensity to the role of West, portraying him as a man who believes deeply in his mission to protect his community from the scourge of drugs. West works alongside his partner and closest friend Ty Grady, played with surprising tenderness by George Carroll, and together they form the backbone of Tulsa's elite drug enforcement team. The partnership between West and Grady represents one of the film's strongest emotional threads, built on years of shared danger and mutual trust in their fight against a seemingly insurmountable enemy. The criminal underworld that West battles is complex and multifaceted, controlled by a series of interconnected organizations that have formed an uneasy alliance to maximize their profits from the fentanyl trade. At the top of this hierarchy sits Holt Lightfeather, portrayed by Graham Greene with quiet menace and calculating intelligence. Lightfeather runs the Indian Brotherhood cartel from his cell in the Oklahoma State Penitentiary at McAllister, known to inmates and guards alike as Big Mac. Despite being incarcerated for life, Lightfeather maintains iron control over the regional drug trade through a network of loyal operatives and carefully orchestrated arrangements with other criminal organizations. His character represents the film's exploration of how the prison system itself has become corrupted by the drug trade, with inmates wielding significant power even while locked away from society. Working in partnership with Lightfeather's organization is Ramon Garza, played by Mando, in a performance that brings unexpected humanity to the role of a Mexican cartel operative. Garza oversees the smuggling operations that bring fentanyl across the border and into Oklahoma's distribution networks. The film shows Garza as more than a simple villain, depicting him as a man caught between the demands of his superiors in Mexico and the practical realities of operating in American territory. His relationship with his subordinates, particularly young recruits like Lago, reveals the way the cartel system exploits vulnerable immigrants who often have little choice but to participate in illegal activities to survive. The Irish mob faction of this criminal alliance is led by the Greene family, a multi-generational crime organization that has adapted to the changing drug market. At the head of the family sits Ginger Greene, portrayed by Melissa Leo, with the kind of steely determination that has made her one of America's most respected character actresses. Ginger represents the old-school criminal matriarch who has seen the drug trade evolve from marijuana and cocaine to the far more dangerous synthetic opioids that now dominate the market. Her son George, known by his street name Smiley and played by Ben Foster, serves as the family's primary enforcer and contact with the other criminal organizations. Foster's portrayal of Smiley Greene is one of the film's most memorable performances, creating a character who speaks through an electrolarynx device that gives his voice an unsettling mechanical quality. This physical detail becomes a crucial part of the character's intimidating presence, suggesting a violent past that has left him physically scarred while making him even more dangerous. Foster plays Smiley with a deceptively polite demeanor that masks his capacity for extreme violence, creating the kind of quietly menacing antagonist that keeps audiences on edge throughout the film. The character's relationship with his mother, Ginger, adds another layer of complexity, showing how family loyalty and criminal enterprise become intertwined in ways that make it impossible to separate personal relationships from illegal activities. The third member of the Greene criminal organization is Mickey, known on the streets as Mickey the Hoop, played by Richie Coster, with a combination of menace and incompetence that provides some of the film's darker comedic moments. Mickey represents the kind of small-time criminal who gets swept up in larger operations beyond his understanding, often creating problems through his lack of professionalism and drug addiction issues. His character serves to show how the drug trade attracts people from all levels of criminal sophistication, from the calculating masterminds like Lightfeather to the desperate addicts like Mickey, who blur the lines between dealer and consumer. The personal stakes of the drug war become devastatingly clear when the film reveals that West's own teenage son, Jack, has become addicted to fentanyl. Jasper Jones portrays Jack West as a typical teenager who gets introduced to drugs through his girlfriend Colby, played by Kaylee Curry. The relationship between Jack and Colby represents the film's exploration of how fentanyl specifically targets young people who are looking for new experiences and are drawn to what appears to be the latest trend in recreational drug use. The film shows how quickly experimentation with fentanyl can lead to devastating addiction, transforming promising young lives into desperate quests for the next fix. The discovery of his son's addiction transforms West from a professional law enforcement officer into a man consumed by personal vengeance against the drug dealers who have destroyed his family. This transformation drives much of the film's emotional power, as audiences watch West struggle with the realization that all his years of fighting the drug trade professionally could not protect his own child from its influence. The performance by James Badgedale captures the anguish of a father who has dedicated his career to fighting exactly the problem that has now invaded his home, creating a sense of tragic irony that runs throughout the narrative. West's investigation into his son's addiction leads him deeper into the criminal underworld that controls fentanyl distribution in Oklahoma. Working with FBI agent Beatty, played by Rory Cochrane, West begins to map out the connections between the various criminal organizations and identify the key players who need to be eliminated to disrupt the drug supply. The film shows the painstaking detective work required to build cases against sophisticated criminal organizations, from surveillance operations to confidential informants to coordinated raids on drug processing facilities. The investigation reveals the sophisticated nature of the modern drug trade, which operates more like a multinational corporation than the street-level dealing that characterized earlier eras of drug trafficking. The film demonstrates how fentanyl trafficking requires complex logistics networks to move product from manufacturing facilities in Mexico through distribution centers in American cities and ultimately to street-level dealers who sell directly to consumers. Each level of this operation requires different skills and resources, from the chemical expertise needed to manufacture the drug, to the transportation networks required to move it across international borders, to the street intelligence necessary. One of the film's most powerful sequences involves a raid on a fentanyl processing facility, where West and his team discover the industrial scale of modern drug manufacturing. The scene reveals how criminal organizations have adopted legitimate business practices to maximize efficiency and profitability, treating drug production like any other manufacturing operation. The discovery of the processing facility represents a major victory for law enforcement, but the film makes clear that shutting down one operation will have little impact on the overall drug trade, as new facilities can quickly be established to replace those that are discovered and closed. The film explores the psychological toll that fighting the drug war takes on law enforcement officers like West and Grady, who see firsthand the devastation that drugs cause in their community while feeling powerless to stop the larger forces that drive the trade. The movie shows how officers can become consumed by their mission, losing perspective on the limits of what law enforcement can accomplish in addressing what is fundamentally a public health crisis. The relationship between West and Grady becomes strained as West's personal involvement in the case makes him increasingly reckless and willing to cross ethical boundaries in pursuit of the dealers who supplied drugs to his son. The criminal organizations depicted in the film are shown to be highly adaptive and resilient, quickly adjusting their operations to account for law enforcement pressure and market changes. When one distribution network is compromised, others step in to fill the gap, ensuring that the supply of fentanyl to street-level dealers remains relatively constant despite police efforts. The film demonstrates how the profit margins in the drug trade are so enormous that criminal organizations can afford to absorb significant losses from law enforcement actions while continuing to expand their operation. The character of Holt Lightfeather becomes central to West's investigation, as the imprisoned crime boss represents the kind of high-level target that law enforcement believes could make a significant impact on drug trafficking if removed from the equation. West's attempts to gather intelligence on Lightfeather's organization lead him into the dangerous world of prison politics, where the normal rules of law enforcement do not apply and information comes at a high price. The scenes set inside the Oklahoma State Penitentiary reveal how the prison system has become another front in the drug war, with inmates and guards alike corrupted by the enormous profits available from trafficking narcotics. The film portrays the fentanyl epidemic as a crisis that transcends traditional boundaries of race, class, and geography, affecting suburban families like the Wests as much as urban communities traditionally associated with drug problems. This universality of the crisis is one of the film's most important themes, showing how synthetic opioids have changed the nature of drug addiction by making it accessible to populations that previously had limited exposure to illegal drugs. The movie suggests that fentanyl's potency and low cost have democratized drug addiction in ways that present unprecedented challenges for families, communities, and law enforcement agencies. The relationship between West and his son Jack becomes increasingly strained as Jack's addiction worsens and his behavior becomes more erratic and dangerous. The film shows how drug addiction destroys trust within families, as parents struggle to distinguish between the child they love and the addict who will lie, steal, and manipulate to obtain drugs. West's wife Tess, played by Sam Quarton, represents the family member who tries to maintain hope for recovery, even as Jack's condition deteriorates, creating tension between her optimism and West's growing conviction that only eliminating the drug dealers can save their son. The investigation leads West to focus increasingly on Ramon Garza's smuggling operation, which serves as the primary pipeline bringing fentanyl from Mexican manufacturing facilities into Oklahoma's distribution networks. The film shows how Garza's operation relies on a combination of human trafficking and drug smuggling, using desperate migrants as both labor for moving drugs and unwitting carriers who may not fully understand what they are transporting. This connection between immigration and drug trafficking adds another layer of complexity to the story, showing how border security issues intersect with domestic drug enforcement in ways that complicate both problems. One of the film's most harrowing sequences involves a truck full of migrants being transported by Garza's organization, with the passengers discovering too late that they are being used as cover for a drug smuggling operation. The scene creates a sense of claustrophobic terror as the migrants realize they are trapped in a situation that could result in their death or imprisonment, while the drug traffickers treat them as expendable resources rather than human beings. This sequence represents one of the film's strongest moral statements about the human cost of the drug trade, showing how criminal organizations exploit vulnerable populations with complete disregard for their welfare. The character development throughout the film focuses on how exposure to the drug trade changes everyone involved, from the criminals who become increasingly violent and paranoid to the law enforcement officers who become obsessed with their mission to the families who are torn apart by addiction. West's transformation from a professional police officer into someone willing to use questionable methods to achieve his goals represents the film's exploration of how the drug war corrupts everyone it touches, making it difficult to maintain clear distinctions between heroes and villains. The film's structure uses multiple interconnected storylines to create a comprehensive picture of the fentanyl trade, showing how decisions made at the top levels of criminal organizations have consequences that ripple down through street-level dealers to individual users and their families. This approach allows the movie to explore the systemic nature of the drug problem, while maintaining focus on the personal stories that give the crisis human dimension. The editing moves seamlessly between the different storylines, creating suspense as audiences anticipate the inevitable moments when the various characters' paths will intersect. The criminal organizations shown in the film operate with a level of sophistication that challenges traditional law enforcement approaches, using advanced communications technology, sophisticated money laundering operations, and detailed knowledge of legal procedures to stay ahead of police investigation. The movie shows how criminal enterprises have evolved to become more professional and businesslike, with clear hierarchies, specialized roles, and systematic approaches to managing risk and maximizing profit. This evolution has made them more difficult for law enforcement to penetrate and disrupt, requiring new approaches that law enforcement agencies are still developing. The film's depiction of fentanyl itself emphasizes the drug's unique dangers compared to previous generations of opioids, including its extreme potency that makes overdoses more likely, and its synthetic nature that allows for mass production without relying on natural plant sources. The movie explains how fentanyl's characteristics have revolutionized the drug trade by making it possible to produce large quantities of drugs with relatively small amounts of raw materials, while creating products that are far more addictive and dangerous than anything previously available on the street. The character of Smiley Greene becomes increasingly important as the film progresses, with his role as an enforcer for the Irish mob putting him in direct conflict with law enforcement efforts to disrupt the drug trade. Foster's performance creates a character who is simultaneously terrifying and pathetic, showing how a lifetime of criminal activity has left Smiley physically damaged and emotionally stunted while making him extremely dangerous to anyone who crosses his path. The character's loyalty to his mother Ginger and the Greene family organization provides the only emotional anchor in his otherwise violent and destructive existence. The prison sequences featuring Holt Lightfeather reveal how incarceration has not diminished his power, but simply changed the ways he exercises control over his criminal organization. The film shows how prisons themselves have become nodes in the drug trafficking network, with inmates maintaining contact with outside operations while recruiting new members from the prison population. Lightfeather's ability to order killings and coordinate drug shipments from his cell demonstrates the fundamental failure of the prison system to actually isolate dangerous criminals from the communities they victimize. West's partnership with FBI agent Beatty represents the film's exploration of how different law enforcement agencies must coordinate their efforts to address drug trafficking that crosses jurisdictional boundaries. The relationship between the local cop and federal agent creates tension as they navigate different priorities and approaches, with West's personal involvement in the case sometimes conflicting with Beatty's more methodical federal investigation. This dynamic adds another layer of realism to the film's portrayal of law enforcement, showing how bureaucratic and jurisdictional issues can complicate efforts to address criminal organizations that operate across. The film's treatment of addiction focuses on how fentanyl specifically targets young people who are attracted to what they perceive as a new and fashionable way to get high, without understanding the extreme risks involved in using such a potent synthetic drug. The movie shows how dealers deliberately market fentanyl to younger users who may have limited experience with other drugs, and therefore lack the knowledge to recognize the signs of overdose or addiction. This targeting of inexperienced users represents one of the most disturbing aspects of the fentanyl epidemic, as it preys on young people's natural desire to experiment and try new experiences. The character of Jack West becomes a representative of an entire generation of young people who have been caught up in the fentanyl epidemic, often through casual experimentation that quickly spirals into life-threatening addiction. The film shows how quickly fentanyl can transform a normal teenager into someone whose entire existence revolves around obtaining and using drugs, with all other relationships and activities becoming secondary to the demands of addiction. Jack's deterioration serves as a powerful illustration of how the current drug epidemic differs from previous generations of drug problems in its speed and intensity. The investigation led by West and his team reveals the enormous scale of money involved in the fentanyl trade, with criminal organizations generating profits that dwarf those of many legitimate businesses. The film shows how these profits allow drug trafficking organizations to corrupt law enforcement officials, purchase sophisticated equipment and weapons, and maintain operations even when significant portions of their network. The money involved creates a level of incentive that makes it extremely difficult to deter people from participating in the drug trade, as the potential rewards far exceed those available through legitimate employment. The relationship between the various criminal organizations shown in the film demonstrates how modern drug trafficking requires cooperation between groups that might traditionally be rivals or enemies, including Mexican cartel, Native American organizations. The film shows how these partnerships are maintained through careful negotiation and mutual benefit, with each organization contributing different resources and capabilities to the overall trafficking network. The breakdown of these relationships provides opportunities for law enforcement to exploit divisions within the criminal community, but also creates potential for increased violence as competing groups fight for control of territories and distribution networks. The character of Ginger Greene represents the matriarchal figure who holds together a criminal family that spans multiple generations, with her authority based on decades of experience in illegal activities and her willingness to use violence to protect family interests. Melissa Leo's performance creates a character who is simultaneously nurturing toward her family members and ruthless toward anyone who threatens their criminal enterprise, showing how personal loyalty and criminal activity can become inseparably intertwined. Ginger's relationship with her son, Smiley, adds emotional depth to their criminal partnership, revealing how family bonds can both motivate and complicate involvement in illegal activity. The film's action sequences are carefully crafted to show the extreme violence that characterizes conflicts between law enforcement and drug trafficking organizations, while also demonstrating the tactical sophistication that both sides bring to their confrontations. The movie avoids glorifying violence while showing how the enormous stakes involved in the drug trade make armed conflict almost inevitable when different groups compete for control of territories or when law enforcement attempts to disrupt established trafficking networks. The action scenes serve to illustrate the dangerous nature of both police work and criminal activity in the context of the modern drug trade. The character of Mickey Greene provides comic relief while also serving as an example of how the drug trade attracts people who are more victims than villains, often individuals whose own addiction issues make them vulnerable to exploitation by more sophisticated criminal organizations. Richie Coster's performance creates a character who is simultaneously threatening and pathetic, showing how drug addiction can coexist with involvement in drug trafficking in ways that blur the traditional distinctions between dealers and users. Mickey's incompetence and unreliability create problems for the Greene family organization while also making him a potential weak link that law enforcement might exploit. The film explores how the fentanyl epidemic has overwhelmed traditional approaches to drug enforcement, with law enforcement agencies struggling to adapt to a problem that is fundamentally different from previous drug crises in its scale, speed, and lethality. The movie shows how police departments that develop their techniques fighting marijuana, cocaine, and heroin trafficking find themselves inadequately prepared for synthetic drugs that can be manufactured anywhere and distributed through networks that don't rely on traditional geographical constraints. This mismatch between law enforcement capabilities and the nature of the current drug crisis creates opportunities for criminal organizations while frustrating police efforts to protect their community. The investigation reveals how fentanyl trafficking networks use sophisticated communication and financial systems to coordinate their operations while avoiding detection by law enforcement agencies. The film shows how criminal organizations have adapted modern technology to their needs, using encrypted communications, cryptocurrency, transactions, and other advanced tools to stay ahead of police surveillance. This technological sophistication makes it more difficult for law enforcement to gather intelligence on criminal organizations while allowing traffickers to coordinate complex operations across multiple jurisdictions. The character development throughout the film focuses on how prolonged exposure to the drug trade changes everyone involved, with both criminals and law enforcement officers becoming increasingly hardened and cynical as they navigate a world. West's transformation from an idealistic police officer into someone willing to use questionable methods reflects the film's exploration of how fighting the drug war requires people to compromise their principles in ways that may ultimately make them part of the problem they are trying to solve. This moral ambiguity runs throughout the narrative, making it difficult for audiences to maintain clear distinctions between heroes and villains. The film's climax builds toward an inevitable confrontation between West's law enforcement team and the criminal organizations they have been pursuing, with both sides preparing for a conflict that will have devastating consequences regardless of who emerges victorious. The movie creates tension by showing how personal vendettas and professional obligations become intertwined in ways that make it impossible for anyone to walk away from the conflict, even when the costs clearly outweigh any potential benefits. The anticipation of violence hangs over the film's final act, as characters make choices that will determine not only their own fates, but also the future of their families and community. The resolution of the film provides no easy answers or simple victories, instead, showing how the drug war continues even after individual battles are won or lost, with new players stepping in to replace those who are killed or imprisoned, while the underlying demand for drugs ensures that trafficking networks will continue to evolve and adapt. The movie's ending reflects the real-world reality that law enforcement victories against drug trafficking organizations are often temporary, as the enormous profits involved ensure that new criminal enterprises will emerge to fill any gaps created by successful police operations. This realistic assessment of the drug war's limitations provides a sobering conclusion to a film that refuses to offer false hope or simple solutions to social problems. The final scenes of King Ivory demonstrate how the fentanyl epidemic has created a crisis that transcends traditional approaches to law enforcement and drug policy, requiring society to confront the reality that current strategies are inadequate to address a problem of this magnitude and complexity. The film suggests that meaningful progress will require fundamental changes in how communities, law enforcement agencies, and policymakers approach drug addiction and trafficking, moving beyond punitive approaches towards strategies that address the underlying social and economic factors that make people vulnerable to both drug addiction and involvement in drug trafficking. The movie's conclusion leaves audiences with a clear understanding of the scope and urgency of the fentanyl crisis, while challenging them to consider what kind of responses might actually make a difference in addressing this ongoing tragedy. Throughout its runtime, King Ivory succeeds in creating a comprehensive portrait of how the fentanyl epidemic affects every level of American society, from the families torn apart by addiction to the law enforcement officers struggling to protect their communities to the criminal organizations that profit from human suffering. The film's strength lies in its refusal to simplify complex issues or provide easy answers to difficult questions, instead presenting a nuanced exploration of how individual choices and systemic failures combine to create and perpetuate a crisis that threatens to undermine the social fabric of entire communities. The movie serves as both entertainment and social commentary, using the conventions of the crime thriller genre to illuminate real-world problems that affect millions of Americans while challenging audiences to think more deeply about the causes and consequences of the ongoing drug epidemic. The performances throughout King Ivory are uniformly strong, with each actor bringing depth and authenticity to characters that could easily have become stereotypes in less. James Badgedale creates a compelling protagonist in Layne West, showing how personal tragedy can transform a dedicated professional into someone willing to cross ethical boundaries in pursuit of what he believes to be justice. Ben Foster delivers another memorable performance as Smiley Greene, creating a character who is simultaneously terrifying and pathetic while maintaining the kind of unpredictable menace that keeps audiences on edge. The supporting cast, including Melissa Leo, Graham Greene, and Michael Mando, brings similar levels of commitment and skill to their roles, creating an ensemble that makes the film's complex web of relationships feel authentic and emotionally resonant. Director John Swab demonstrates considerable skill in managing the film's multiple storylines and large cast, creating a narrative that moves smoothly between different locations and timeframes while maintaining focus on the central themes that connect all the various characters and plot threads. The film's visual style effectively captures the gritty reality of both law enforcement work and criminal activity, using locations and cinematography that emphasize the harsh consequences of the drug trade for everyone involved. The editing creates appropriate pacing that builds tension toward the film's climactic confrontations, while allowing time for character development and the exploration of complex social issues. King Ivory ultimately stands as a significant contribution to the crime thriller genre that uses entertainment to illuminate serious social problems, creating a film that works both as exciting cinema and as a thoughtful examination of one of the most pressing issues facing contemporary American society. The movie's combination of strong performances, skillful direction, and intelligent writing results in a film that respects its audience's intelligence, while providing the kind of compelling storytelling that makes complex issues accessible to general audiences. The film's refusal to offer simple solutions or easy answers reflects a mature approach to filmmaking that recognizes the limitations of cinema while maximizing its potential to educate and the lasting impact of King Ivory lies in its ability to humanize statistics and policy debates about the drug crisis by showing how abstract problems affect real people in specific communities, creating the kind of emotional connection that can motivate audiences to engage more deeply with issues they might otherwise ignore or dismiss. The film serves as a powerful reminder that behind every news report about drug overdoses and trafficking arrests are human stories of tragedy and loss that deserve attention and compassion, rather than indifference or judgment. By presenting these stories with honesty and respect, King Ivory makes a valuable contribution to ongoing discussions about how society should respond to the challenges posed by synthetic drugs and the criminal organizations that distribute them. The technical aspects of King Ivory support the film's thematic goals through careful attention to details that enhance the story's realism and emotional impact. The sound design effectively captures the tension and violence that characterize both law enforcement operations and criminal activities, while the production design creates authentic environments that help immerse audiences in the world of drug trafficking and police investigation. The cinematography uses natural lighting and handheld camera work to create a documentary feel that adds credibility to the story, while supporting the film's serious treatment of its subject matter. King Ivory represents the kind of socially conscious filmmaking that uses the resources and techniques of commercial cinema to address important public issues, creating entertainment that also serves educational and advocacy purposes without sacrificing the storytelling. The film demonstrates how genre conventions can be used to explore serious social problems while maintaining the kind of dramatic tension and character development that keeps audiences engaged throughout a feature-length narrative. This balance between entertainment and social commentary makes King Ivory a model for how filmmakers can use their craft to contribute meaningfully to public discourse about pressing social issues. The film King Ivory explores the multifaceted dimensions of fentanyl trafficking through its extensive ensemble cast, each representing different aspects of the crisis that has devastated American communities. The character dynamics and relationships within the film create a complex web of interconnected stories that demonstrate how synthetic drugs affect every level of society, from the highest-ranking criminal masterminds to the youngest victims of addiction. James Whitecloud portrays Jai, a Native American character who represents the intersection of organized crime with tribal politics and the unique vulnerabilities that reservation communities face in the drug epidemic. His character serves as a bridge between the traditional organized crime structures represented by Holt Lightfeather's Indian Brotherhood and the younger generation of Native Americans, who find themselves caught between respecting their cultural heritage and navigating the economic realities that make illegal activities attractive. The relationship between Jai and Lightfeather reveals generational tensions within Native American communities about how to respond to the opportunities and dangers. Ben Hall's character Cap represents the kind of career law enforcement officer who has dedicated decades to fighting drug trafficking, developing an encyclopedic knowledge of criminal organizations and their methods through years of experience on the streets. Cap serves as a mentor figure to younger officers like West, providing institutional memory about how drug trafficking has evolved over the decades, and offering strategic insights based on his extensive experience with different types of criminal organizations. His character provides historical context for the current fentanyl crisis by showing how previous generations of drug problems have shaped law enforcement approaches and community responses. The character of Lago, portrayed by David Barcena, represents the vulnerable immigrant population that gets exploited by drug trafficking organizations, often serving as unwitting participants in smuggling operations or as expendable labor for dangerous activities. Lago's story illustrates how immigration status and language barriers make certain populations particularly susceptible to exploitation by criminal organizations that prey on peoples. His character development throughout the film shows the human cost of immigration policies that create underground populations with limited legal protections and economic opportunities. Kaylee Curry's portrayal of Colby provides crucial insight into how fentanyl specifically targets young women, who often serve as both users and recruiters for drug trafficking organizations. Her relationship with Jack West demonstrates how romantic relationships among teenagers can become pathways for drug introduction, with young women sometimes serving as bridges between different social groups and drug distribution networks. Colby's character shows how gender dynamics within drug culture can make young women both vulnerable to exploitation and influential in spreading drug use to new populations. Nikki Dixon plays Frosty, a character who represents the street-level dealers who form the final link in the drug distribution chain, connecting major trafficking organizations with individual consumers. Frosty's character demonstrates the precarious position of low-level dealers who face significant risks from both law enforcement and criminal organizations while receiving relatively small profits for their participation in drug trafficking. Her portrayal shows how addiction issues often intersect with dealing activities, creating cycles where people sell drugs to support their own habits while becoming increasingly dependent on criminal organizations for both product and protection. Orlando Valentino portrays Nix, a character who represents the kind of mid-level criminal operative who serves as a liaison between different organizational levels within drug trafficking networks. Nix's role demonstrates the importance of communication and coordination in modern drug trafficking, where successful operations require careful management of relationships between suppliers, distributors, and street-level dealers. His character shows how drug trafficking organizations have become more sophisticated and businesslike, requiring people with specific skills in negotiation, logistics, and conflict resolution. Terrence Reed's character Juice represents the muscle element within criminal organizations, serving as an enforcer who uses violence or the threat of violence to maintain discipline within trafficking networks and resolve disputes that arise in the illegal drug trade. Juice's role illustrates how violence remains an essential component of drug trafficking, despite the increased sophistication of criminal organizations, with physical intimidation serving as the ultimate enforcement mechanism when other forms of control fail. His character demonstrates how the drug trade attracts people who are comfortable with violence while also creating situations that require violent solutions to business problems. Isabella Sanchez portrays Ruby, a character who represents the women who become involved in drug trafficking organizations through family relationships, often serving in support roles that may seem less directly criminal, but are essential to the functioning of trafficking networks. Ruby's character shows how family structures within criminal organizations can provide both protection and vulnerability for women, who may have limited agency within male-dominated criminal enterprises, while also possessing unique access to information and resources that make them valuable to law enforcement investigators. The character of Coach Finch, played by John Swab, represents the community leaders and authority figures who find themselves struggling to address drug problems within their spheres of influence, often discovering that traditional approaches to youth development and community building are inadequate to compete with the attractions and resources offered by drug trafficking organizations. His role demonstrates how the fentanyl crisis has overwhelmed traditional community institutions like schools and sports programs, requiring new approaches to youth engagement and prevention efforts. Dwayne Chamberlain portrays Redbird, a character who represents the older generation of Native American criminals who have established relationships with various criminal organizations over decades of illegal activity. Redbird's character provides insight into how organized crime within Native American communities has evolved over time, adapting to changing economic conditions and law enforcement pressures, while maintaining connections to traditional tribal structures and relationships. His relationship with younger characters, like G, illustrates generational tensions about how Native American communities should respond to the opportunities and challenges presented by Mando. Brian Mathis plays Booker, a character who represents the kind of independent criminal operator who works with various drug trafficking organizations without being fully committed to any single group. Booker's role demonstrates the flexibility and adaptability that characterizes modern drug trafficking, where successful operators must be able to work with different organizations and adapt to changing market conditions and law enforcement pressure. His character shows how the drug trade has become more entrepreneurial and less hierarchical than traditional organized crime structures. Alan Greene portrays Andre, a character who represents the prison population that serves as both a recruitment ground for criminal organizations and a continuing operational base for incarcerated crime bosses who maintain control over street-level activities. Andre's role illustrates how the prison system has become integrated into drug trafficking networks, with inmates serving as communications hubs and strategic planners for criminal activities that continue even while key figures are incarcerated. His relationship with Holt Lightfeather demonstrates the sophisticated communication networks that allow imprisoned criminals to maintain control over outside operations. Danny Boy O'Connor's portrayal of Burl Cain represents the correctional officers and prison administrators who find themselves dealing with the reality that modern prisons have become nodes in drug trafficking networks, rather than institutions that successfully isolate criminals from their illegal activities. His character shows the challenges that prison officials face in maintaining security and control when inmates have access to resources and communication networks that allow them to continue directing criminal enterprises from within correctional facilities. Eric Hidalgo plays Yavi, a character who represents the younger generation of Latino criminals who are recruited by established drug trafficking organizations, often serving in entry-level positions that expose them to significant risks while providing limited financial rewards. Javi's character development illustrates how drug trafficking organizations exploit young people's desire for respect and economic advancement, offering short-term benefits that often lead to long-term involvement in criminal activities that become increasingly difficult to escape. Kobe West portrays Ryan, a character who represents the peripheral figures who become involved in drug trafficking through social relationships rather than criminal ambitions, often serving as couriers or lookouts without fully understanding the scope or dangers of the operations they are supporting. Ryan's role demonstrates how drug trafficking organizations expand their reach by recruiting people who may not consider themselves criminals, but become essential components of trafficking networks through their willingness to perform seemingly minor services. Gwen Olsen plays Jayla West, a character who represents the family members who discover that their loved ones are involved in drug trafficking, either as users or participants in criminal. Her role illustrates the devastating impact that drug involvement has on families, creating conflicts between loyalty to family members and recognition of the harm that drug activities cause to communities. Jayla's character development shows how families struggle to maintain relationships with members who are involved in drug trafficking while also protecting themselves and other family members from the consequences of criminal activities. Abel Becerra portrays Yannick, a character who represents the international dimensions of fentanyl trafficking, serving as a connection between Mexican manufacturing operations and American distribution networks. Yannick's role demonstrates the global nature of synthetic trafficking, which requires coordination between criminal organizations in different countries with different legal systems and enforcement capabilities. His character shows how drug trafficking has become an international business that requires sophisticated logistics and communication capabilities. Clarissa Cozzoni plays Tori, a character who represents the young women who become romantically involved with men in drug trafficking organizations, often serving as unwitting accomplices in criminal activities while believing they are simply supporting their romantic partner. Tori's role illustrates how romantic relationships can become pathways for involvement in drug trafficking, with women often providing cover for criminal activities or serving as couriers and communications links without fully understanding the legal risks they are accepting. Maggie Bear portrays Marcy, a character who represents the Native American women who find themselves caught between traditional cultural values and the economic opportunities presented by involvement. Her role demonstrates the particular vulnerabilities that Native American women face in communities where traditional economic opportunities are limited, and where tribal law enforcement may have limited resources to address trafficking problems. Martin Stowe plays Alo, a character who represents the older generation of criminals who have adapted their illegal activities to take advantage of the opportunities presented by synthetic drug trafficking, often serving as advisors and financiers for younger criminals who handle the more dangerous aspects of drug distribution. Alo's character shows how experienced criminals have adapted to the changing drug market while using their knowledge and resource to minimize their personal risks. The extensive supporting cast includes numerous characters who represent different aspects of the communities affected by fentanyl trafficking, from law enforcement officers and correctional personnel to family members and community leaders who find themselves dealing with the consequences of drug trafficking activities. Each character contributes to the film's comprehensive portrayal of how synthetic drugs have affected American communities, creating a complex web of relationships and conflicts that demonstrate the multifaceted nature of the current drug crisis. The character interactions throughout King Ivory reveal how drug trafficking creates relationships and dependencies that extend far beyond simple buyer-seller transactions, involving families, communities, and institutions in ways that make it extremely difficult to address drug problems through traditional law enforcement approaches alone. The film shows how synthetic drugs have created new types of criminal organizations that operate more like businesses than traditional organized crime structures, requiring different approaches from both law enforcement and community leaders who are trying to address drug problems in their areas. The ensemble cast works together to create a comprehensive portrait of American communities struggling with the fentanyl epidemic, showing how the crisis affects people from different backgrounds and social positions while creating new forms of criminal organization and community disruption. The performances demonstrate the human cost of drug trafficking while also showing the complexity of the social and economic factors that make people vulnerable to involvement in drug. The character development throughout the film focuses on how exposure to fentanyl trafficking changes everyone involved, from the criminals who become increasingly violent and paranoid, to the law enforcement officers who become obsessed with their mission, to the families who are torn apart by addiction and criminal involvement. The movie shows how the drug crisis has created new types of trauma and social disruption that require innovative responses from communities, law enforcement agencies, and social service organizations. The relationships between characters from different backgrounds and social positions illustrate how fentanyl trafficking has created new forms of social connection in conflict, bringing together people who might otherwise never interact while creating tensions and dependencies that shape community. The film demonstrates how drug trafficking has become a social phenomenon that affects entire communities, rather than simply involving individual criminals and their victims. The supporting characters represent the broader community impacts of fentanyl trafficking, showing how drug problems affect schools, workplaces, families, and social institutions in ways that create ripple effects throughout society. The movie illustrates how the current drug crisis differs from previous generations of drug problems in its scope and intensity, requiring comprehensive community responses rather than simply increased law enforcement efforts. The character portrayals throughout King Ivory emphasize the human dimensions of policy debates about drug trafficking and addiction, showing how abstract discussions about law enforcement strategies and public health approaches effect. The film creates emotional connections between audiences and characters who represent different aspects of the drug crisis, encouraging viewers to think more deeply about the causes and consequences of synthetic drug trafficking. The ensemble performances create a sense of authenticity that makes the film's social commentary more powerful and convincing, showing how experienced actors can bring depth and humanity to characters who might otherwise become stereotyped. The cast demonstrates how collaborative filmmaking can create comprehensive portrayals of complex social problems while maintaining the dramatic tension and character development that make movies compelling for general audiences. The technical craftsmanship behind King Ivory represents a masterclass in contemporary crime filmmaking, with director John Swab demonstrating remarkable skill in orchestrating complex narrative threads while maintaining the gritty authenticity. The film's production values reflect careful attention to every aspect of filmmaking, from the cinematography that captures the harsh realities of both urban and rural Oklahoma to the sound design that immerses audiences in the dangerous world of fentanyl trafficking. Cinematographer Will Stone's visual approach to the film creates an aesthetic that balances documentary realism with cinematic storytelling, using natural lighting and handheld camera movements to create an intimate feel that draws audiences into the characters' experiences. Stone's work captures the contrast between the seemingly normal suburban environments where drug addiction takes hold and the industrial locations where trafficking organizations conduct their business, using visual composition to emphasize the way that drug trafficking infiltrates communities that appear safe and secure on the surface. The camera work throughout King Ivory employs a variety of techniques to create different emotional responses depending on the story beat. During the family scenes involving West and his son Jack, the cinematography adopts a more traditional approach with steady shots and conventional framing that emphasizes the normalcy that drug addiction disrupts. In contrast, the scenes involving criminal organizations utilize more dynamic camera movements and unconventional angles that create a sense of instability and danger, reflecting the unpredictable nature of life within trafficking networks. The film's production design, overseen by Miles Rogoish, creates authentic environments that reflect the economic and social conditions that make communities vulnerable to drug trafficking, while also showing the resources and sophistication of modern criminal organizations. The attention to detail in creating both legitimate and criminal locations helps establish the believability that makes the film's social commentary more powerful and convincing. The production design team's research into actual law enforcement facilities, criminal operations, and affected communities shows in every frame of the finished film. Art director Morgan McClellan's work supports the overall production design by creating specific details that enhance the storytelling without drawing attention away from the characters and their relationships. The art direction includes careful selection of props, signage, and environmental details that help establish the authenticity of each location, while also providing visual information about the characters' backgrounds and motivations. The collaborative work between production design and art direction creates a visual foundation that supports the film's complex narrative structure. The costume design by Caitlin Smith reflects the different social and economic backgrounds of the various characters, while also showing how involvement in drug trafficking affects people's appearance and self-presentation. The costumes for law enforcement characters emphasize their professional status and dedication to their work, while the clothing choices for criminal characters reflect both their economic success from drug trafficking and their need to blend into legitimate. The costume design for characters struggling with addiction shows the gradual deterioration that accompanies drug dependency. The editing work by Andrew Aronson creates pacing that builds tension throughout the film while managing the complex relationships between multiple storylines and large cast of characters. The editing approach uses cross-cutting between different locations and timeframes to create connections between characters and events that might not be immediately obvious, helping audiences understand the scope and complexity of the drug trafficking networks being portrayed. The editing rhythm varies between contemplative character moments and intense action sequences, creating dynamic storytelling that keeps audiences engaged. The sound design and music supervision create an audio landscape that immerses audiences in both the ordinary world of American communities and the dangerous environment of drug trafficking operations. The sound work includes careful attention to environmental audio that helps establish locations and creates atmosphere, while the music choices support the emotional content of scenes without overwhelming the dialogue and performance. The audio design includes subtle details that enhance the realism of both law enforcement and criminal activities. The film's approach to depicting violence reflects a mature understanding of how to portray the dangerous reality of drug trafficking without glorifying or sensationalizing the criminal activities being shown. The action sequences are choreographed and filmed to emphasize consequences rather than excitement, showing how violence affects both the perpetrators and victims while advancing the story's themes about the human cost of the drug trade. The violence serves the story rather than existing simply to provide entertainment value. The special effects work, coordinated by Joe Carpenter, focuses on practical effects that enhance the realism of action sequences and criminal activities without relying heavily on digital effects that might compromise the film's documentary aesthetic. The special effects team's work includes creating realistic depictions of drug manufacturing and trafficking activities that educate audiences about the actual methods used by criminal organizations, while maintaining the safety. The visual effects supervision by Lyndon Bracewell and Keith M. Hamilton provides digital enhancement that supports the practical filmmaking without calling attention to itself, using computer-generated imagery to extend practical locations and enhance action sequences in ways that maintain the film's realistic aesthetic. The visual effects work includes digital compositing that allows for more complex action sequences while ensuring the safety of performers, as well as environmental enhancements that help create the scope and scale necessary for the story. The stunt coordination reflects the film's commitment to authentic action sequences that serve the story while ensuring the safety of all performers. The stunt work includes realistic fight choreography and vehicle sequences that emphasize the dangerous nature of both law enforcement work and criminal activities without resorting to unrealistic action movie conventions. The stunt team's work contributes to the film's overall sense of authenticity while providing the physical action necessary for the crime thriller genre. The film's approach to dialogue reflects extensive research into the actual language and communication methods used by both law enforcement officers and criminal organizations involved in drug trafficking. The script includes authentic terminology and speech patterns that help establish the credibility of characters from different backgrounds while avoiding the stereotypical dialogue that often characterizes crime films. The authenticity of the dialogue contributes to the performances by giving actors realistic material that reflects their characters' backgrounds and experiences. The production management and scheduling required for King Ivory reflects the complexity of creating a film with multiple locations, large cast, and technically demanding sequences within the constraints of an independent film budget. The production team's success in managing these challenges while maintaining high production values demonstrates the kind of filmmaking expertise that allows independent productions to compete with major studio releases in terms of technical quality and storytelling sophistication. The film's post-production process includes extensive color grading and audio mixing that enhances the visual and auditory storytelling while maintaining the naturalistic aesthetic that supports the film. The post-production work creates consistency between scenes filmed in different locations and under varying conditions, while also enhancing the emotional impact of key dramatic moments through careful manipulation of visual and audio elements. The collaboration between different departments throughout the production process creates a unified vision that serves the film's complex narrative and thematic goals. The success of King Ivory as both entertainment and social commentary reflects the kind of collaborative filmmaking that brings together talented professionals from all aspects of film production to create something greater than the sum of its individual components. The technical achievements of the film demonstrate how independent productions can achieve high production values through careful planning and skilled execution. The film's approach to authenticity extends to every aspect of the production, from the selection of filming locations that reflect the actual environments where drug trafficking occurs to the casting choices that bring together actors with the experience and skill necessary to portray complex characters convincingly. The commitment to authenticity creates a foundation that supports both the entertainment value and the social relevance of the finished film. The production's relationship with law enforcement and community organizations reflects the filmmaker's commitment to creating a responsible portrayal of drug trafficking that educates audiences without providing a blueprint for criminal activities. The consultation process with experts from various fields helps ensure that the film's depiction of both law enforcement procedures and criminal operations reflects real-world conditions. The film's budget constraints required creative solutions that demonstrate how skilled filmmakers can achieve impressive results without the resources available to major studio productions. The efficient use of resources and careful planning throughout the production process creates production values that support the storytelling goals, while maximizing the impact of every dollar spent on the film. The collaborative relationship between the director, producers, and key creative personnel creates a unified approach to the material that ensures consistency across all aspects of the production. The shared commitment to creating both effective entertainment and meaningful social commentary guides decision-making throughout the production process, from the initial script development through the final post-production work. The film's festival premiere and subsequent distribution strategy reflects the challenges and opportunities facing independent films that address serious social issues while working within commercial entertainment genres. The selection for prestigious film festivals provides validation of the film's artistic and social value, while also creating opportunities for reaching audiences who are interested in thoughtful treatments of contemporary problems. The international reception of King Ivory demonstrates how stories about American social problems can resonate with audiences in different countries who face similar challenges with drug trafficking and addiction. The film's themes about the human cost of drug trafficking transcend national boundaries, while the specific details about American law enforcement and criminal justice systems provide insights into how different societies approach these problems. The film's educational potential extends beyond its entertainment value, providing audiences with information about the realities of fentanyl trafficking that can contribute to more informed discussions about drug policy and community responses to addiction. The authentic portrayal of both the causes and consequences of drug trafficking creates opportunities for the film to serve as a catalyst for community conversations about how to address the problems more. The long-term impact of King Ivory will likely depend on its ability to reach audiences who might not otherwise engage with serious discussions about drug policy and addiction, using the accessibility of entertainment media to create awareness and understanding about complex social problems. The film's combination of compelling storytelling and authentic social commentary creates the potential for lasting influence on how people think about the drug crisis and the appropriate responses from individuals, communities, and institutions. The thematic architecture of King Ivory extends far beyond the surface narrative of law enforcement versus drug trafficking, delving into profound explorations of systemic failure, generational trauma, and the cyclical nature of violence that perpetuates America's ongoing struggles with substance abuse and criminal justice. The film presents a sophisticated examination of how social institutions, family structures, and individual choices intersect to create the conditions that allow synthetic drugs like fentanyl to devastate entire communities while enriching criminal organizations that operate with impunity across traditional jurisdictional boundaries. The theme of institutional corruption pervades the narrative, showing how the drug trade has compromised nearly every aspect of American society. From the prison system that serves as a command center for criminal operations to law enforcement agencies that struggle with limited resources and competing priorities. The film demonstrates how Holt Lightfeather can continue directing a sophisticated drug trafficking network from his prison cell, revealing the fundamental failure of correctional institutions to actually isolate dangerous criminals from their illegal activities. This institutional breakdown extends to law enforcement agencies that find themselves overwhelmed by the scale and sophistication of modern drug trafficking, lacking the resources and authority necessary to address trafficking. The exploration of economic desperation provides another crucial thematic element, showing how limited legitimate opportunities in communities like Tulsa create conditions that make involvement in drug trafficking attractive to people from various backgrounds. The film illustrates how young people like Lago are recruited into trafficking networks, not through coercion, but through the promise of economic advancement that is unavailable through legal employment. Similarly, the portrayal of Mickey Greene shows how addiction and criminal activity become intertwined when people lack access to treatment resources and legitimate economic opportunities. The theme of family destruction runs throughout the narrative, demonstrating how drug trafficking and addiction tear apart relationships that should provide stability and support for individuals facing difficult circumstances. West's relationship with his son, Jack, represents the most obvious example of this theme, showing how a dedicated law enforcement officer's professional commitment to fighting drugs cannot protect his own family from the epidemic he battles every day. The Greene family presents a different perspective on family destruction, showing how criminal enterprises can maintain family bonds while engaging in activities that ultimately harm both family members and the greater community. The film's treatment of racial and cultural identity adds layers of complexity to its thematic exploration, particularly through the character of Holt Lightfeather and the Indian Brotherhood organization. The portrayal of Native American involvement in drug trafficking reflects historical patterns of exploitation and marginalization that have created conditions where illegal activities become attractive alternatives to limited opportunities. The film avoids stereotypical representations while acknowledging the real challenges that tribal communities face in addressing drug trafficking that often originates outside their jurisdictions but causes devastating harm within their populations. The theme of technological adaptation illustrates how criminal organizations have embraced modern communication and financial systems to stay ahead of law enforcement efforts. While the film shows how drug trafficking has become a high-tech operation that requires sophisticated logistics, communications, and money laundering capabilities that rival those of legitimate multinational corporations. The exploration of addiction as a public health crisis rather than simply a criminal justice problem provides one of the film's most important thematic contributions, showing how the current approach to drug problems focuses primarily on punishment and enforcement, while failing to address the underlying conditions that make people vulnerable to substance abuse. The film demonstrates how addiction affects people from all social and economic backgrounds, challenging stereotypes about who becomes involved with drugs, while illustrating the inadequacy of purely punitive responses to what is fundamentally a medical and social problem. The theme of moral ambiguity permeates the narrative, making it difficult for audiences to maintain clear distinctions between heroes and villains as characters make choices that blur traditional ethical boundaries. West's willingness to use questionable methods in pursuing drug dealers reflects the film's exploration of how fighting crime can require people to compromise their principles in ways that may ultimately make them part of the problem they are trying to solve. Similarly, characters like Ramon Garza are portrayed as complex individuals who are neither purely evil nor entirely sympathetic, reflecting the reality that most people involved in drug trafficking are shaped by circumstances and choices that resist simple moral categorization. The film's treatment of violence emphasizes consequences rather than excitement, showing how the use of force creates cycles of retaliation and escalation that harm everyone involved while failing to address the underlying problems that create conflict in the first place. The action sequences serve to illustrate the dangerous reality of both law enforcement work and criminal activity, without glorifying violence or suggesting that aggressive tactics provide effective solutions. The theme of generational conflict appears throughout the narrative, showing how different age groups approach drug problems with different assumptions and strategies that often work at cross purposes. The relationship between Holt Lightfeather and younger characters, like Jai, reflects tensions within Native American communities about how to respond to economic opportunities and challenges presented by the modern drug trade. Similarly, the portrayal of teenage drug use shows how young people's attitudes towards substance abuse differ from those of older generations, creating communication barriers that prevent effective intervention and prevention efforts. The exploration of geographical and jurisdictional challenges illustrates how drug trafficking networks operate across boundaries that limit the effectiveness of traditional law enforcement approaches. requiring coordination and resources that are often unavailable to local agencies dealing with problems that originate far from their community. The film shows how drugs manufactured in Mexico create problems in Oklahoma communities, while criminal organizations exploit the complexities of federal, state, and local jurisdictions to avoid detection and prosecution. The theme of media representation and public awareness reflects the film's own role in shaping public educate and mislead audiences of a complex social issue. The film takes responsibility for presenting accurate information about drug trafficking and addiction while recognizing the limitations of cinema in addressing problems that require comprehensive policy responses and community engagement. The exploration of gender dynamics within drug trafficking networks shows how women's roles in criminal organizations reflect broader patterns of inequality and exploitation that exist throughout society, while also demonstrating how women's experiences with addiction and criminal involvement differ from those of men in ways that require different approaches to intervention and treatment. Characters like Ginger Greene and Colby represent different aspects of women's involvement in drug culture, from leadership roles within criminal organizations to vulnerable positions as users and recruitment targets. The theme of cultural assimilation and resistance appears through characters who navigate between legitimate society and criminal subcultures, showing how involvement in drug trafficking requires people to develop different identities and behavioral patterns depending on their circumstances and audience. The film illustrates how successful criminals must be able to function within both legal and illegal contexts, developing skills in deception and manipulation that allow them to maintain their activities while avoiding detection. The exploration of redemption and recovery provides hope within the otherwise bleak landscape of drug trafficking and addiction, showing how some characters struggle to escape cycles of criminal behavior and substance abuse. The film acknowledges the difficulty of recovery while suggesting that change is possible for people who are willing to make difficult choices and accept help from others. The theme of community responsibility challenges audiences to consider their own roles in addressing drug problems, suggesting that effective responses require engagement from individuals, families, and organizations beyond law enforcement agencies and treatment providers. The film illustrates how drug trafficking affects entire communities rather than just the individuals directly involved, creating obligations for collective action that transcend traditional boundaries of personal responsibility. The exploration of political and policy implications suggests that current approaches to drug problems are fundamentally inadequate to address the scale and complexity of synthetic drug trafficking, requiring new strategies that combine law enforcement, public health, and social service approaches in coordinated responses that address both supply and demand factors. The film avoids endorsing specific policy solutions while clearly demonstrating. The theme of historical continuity shows how current drug problems reflect long-term patterns of social and economic inequality that have created conditions where illegal activities become attractive alternatives to limited legitimate opportunities. The film suggests that addressing drug trafficking requires understanding and addressing the underlying social conditions that make people vulnerable to involvement in criminal enterprises and substance abuse. The exploration of international dimensions illustrates how drug problems in American communities are connected to global networks of production, distribution, and finance that require international cooperation and coordination to address effectively. The film shows how local law enforcement agencies must deal with problems that originate in other countries and involve criminal organizations that operate across national boundaries. The theme of technological surveillance and privacy reflects contemporary debates about the balance between security and civil liberties in addressing drug trafficking, showing how law enforcement agencies use advanced technology to gather intelligence on criminal organizations while raising questions about the appropriate limits of government surveillance in democratic societies. The film illustrates how both criminals and law enforcement have embraced tech. The cultural impact and critical reception of King Ivory demonstrates how contemporary crime thrillers can transcend mere entertainment to become significant contributions to ongoing social discourse about one of America's most pressing public health crises. The film's reception across various platforms and critical venues reveals both the strengths and limitations of using popular cinema to address complex social problems while maintaining the. Critics have consistently praised the film's authentic approach to depicting the fentanyl epidemic, with many reviewers noting how director John Swab's extensive research with law enforcement officers, drug traffickers, prisoners, migrants, and addiction victims creates a level of realism that distinguishes King Ivory from previous crime films that rely more heavily on fictional conventions than actual investigation in their subject matter. This research foundation provides credibility that supports the film's serious treatment of drug trafficking while avoiding the sensationalism that often characterizes Hollywood's approach to crime stories. The performance evaluations from professional critics highlight the ensemble cast's commitment to creating authentic characters that reflect the complexity of real people involved in drug trafficking networks, rather than relying on stereotypical portrayals that might entertain audiences without providing meaningful insights into the actual dynamics of criminal organizations. James Badgedale's portrayal of Layne West receives particular acclaim for showing the personal cost of fighting a drug war that affects law enforcement officers' own families, while Ben Foster's work as Smiley Greene demonstrates his continued ability to create memorable antagonists who are simultaneously threatening and pathetic. The film's technical achievements receive recognition from critics who appreciate how cinematographer Will Stone's visual approach creates documentary authenticity without sacrificing the dramatic impact necessary for feature film storytelling. The cinematography's combination of handheld camera work and natural lighting creates intimacy that draws audiences into characters' experiences while maintaining the visual style supports the film's thematic goals by emphasizing realism over stylization. Critical discussions of the film's narrative structure reveal how the multiple storyline approach creates comprehensive coverage of the fentanyl epidemic while presenting challenges for audiences who must track numerous characters and plot threads throughout the film's substantial running time. Some critics praise this ambitious approach for providing thorough examination of complex social problems, while others suggest that the breadth of coverage sometimes comes at the expense of individual character development and emotional engagement with specific storylines. The film's treatment of violence receives mixed critical response, with some reviewers appreciating how action sequences emphasize consequences rather than excitement, while others suggest that the violent content may overshadow the film's social commentary for audiences who focus more on the thriller elements than the underlying themes about drug policy and community impact. The critical consensus acknowledges that balancing entertainment value with educational content presents ongoing challenges for filmmakers who want to reach general audiences while addressing serious social issues. Professional critics consistently note the film's relevance to contemporary policy debates about drug enforcement and addiction treatment, with many reviews acknowledging how King Ivory contributes to ongoing discussions about the effectiveness of current approaches to drugs. The critical reception suggests that the film succeeds in raising awareness about the scope and complexity of the fentanyl epidemic, while challenging audiences to think more critically about solutions that address both supply and demand factors in drug trafficking. The festival circuit reception demonstrates how King Ivory functions within the broader context of socially conscious filmmaking, with selections for prestigious venues like the Venice Film Festival providing validation of the film's artistic merit, while also creating opportunities for reaching international audiences who may face similar drug trafficking challenges in their own communities. The festival screenings create platforms for discussions about drug policy that extend beyond the film itself to broader questions about community responses to addiction and criminal justice reform. Audience response through various rating platforms reveals generational and demographic differences in how viewers interpret the film's message and evaluate its entertainment value, with younger audiences often focusing more on the action elements while older viewers tend to appreciate the social commentary and authentic portrayal of law enforcement challenges. These different perspectives reflect broader cultural divisions about how society should approach drug problems and what role entertainment media should play in addressing serious social issues. The comparative critical analysis positions King Ivory within the tradition of drug war films like Traffic and Sicario, with critics noting both similarities and differences in how these movies approach the subject of drug trafficking and law enforcement. The critical consensus suggests that King Ivory makes valuable contributions to this genre, while acknowledging that it faces the ongoing challenge of providing new insights into problems that have been extensively covered in previous films and television productions. International critical reception reveals. Critical reception reveals. Critics from other countries often focus on what the film reveals about American society and law enforcement capabilities, while drawing connections to similar problems in their own national contexts. The critical evaluation of the film's educational value acknowledges both its potential to inform audiences about drug trafficking realities and its limitations as a vehicle for comprehensive understanding of complex policy. Critics generally agree that King Ivory provides valuable insights while recognizing that entertainment media cannot substitute for informed policy analysis and community engagement in addressing drug problems. The professional critical response to the film's portrayal of specific populations, including Native Americans, Mexican immigrants, and law enforcement officers, reflects ongoing discussions about representation in entertainment media and the response. Critics generally praise the film's efforts to present complex characters who resist simple categorization, while acknowledging that any single film faces limitations in representing the full diversity of people involved in drug trafficking networks. The critical assessment of the film's production values demonstrates how independent filmmakers can achieve high technical standards that support serious social commentary while working within budget constraints. Critics note that the film's success in creating authentic environments and compelling action sequences within its financial limitations provides a model for other independent productions addressing social issues. The long-term critical evaluation will likely depend on how accurately the film's portrayal of drug trafficking corresponds to evolving realities of the fentanyl epidemic and how effectively its social commentary contributes to meaningful policy discussion. Critics acknowledge that films addressing current social problems face the challenge of remaining relevant as circumstances change and new information becomes available about the issues they attempt to address. The critical discourse surrounding King Ivory reflects broader questions about the role of entertainment media in democratic society, particularly regarding how popular culture can contribute to public understanding of complex issues while maintaining the entertainment. Critics generally acknowledge the value of socially conscious filmmaking, while recognizing the inherent tensions between artistic expression, commercial viability, and social responsibility. The professional critical response reveals how crime thrillers can serve multiple functions simultaneously, providing entertainment for audiences seeking dramatic storytelling, while also contributing to social discourse about important public policy issues. Critics note that King Ivory succeeds in balancing these different objectives, while acknowledging that different audiences may prioritize different aspects of the film depending on their interests and backgrounds. The critical legacy of King Ivory will likely be determined by its influence on subsequent films addressing drug trafficking, as well as its contribution to ongoing policy discussions about effective approaches to synthetic drug problems. Critics suggest that the film's combination of authentic research, skilled filmmaking, and serious social commentary creates a valuable addition to the genre of socially conscious crime thrillers that may influence how future filmmakers approach similar subjects. The directorial vision of John Swab represents one of the most authentic and personal approaches to crime filmmaking in contemporary American cinema, bringing lived experience and unflinching honesty to subjects that many filmmakers approach from purely intellectual or commercial perspectives. Born and raised in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the same city where King Ivory takes place, Swab brings an intimate understanding of the communities and circumstances that make areas like Oklahoma particularly vulnerable to synthetic drug epidemics that devastate families and overwhelm law enforcement resources. Swab's personal history as someone who ran away from home at age 15 and lived on the streets among criminals for many years, provides the foundation for the authenticity that distinguishes his films from other crime thrillers that rely more heavily on research than experience. His own struggles with drug addiction and subsequent recovery inform every aspect of King Ivory's portrayal of how substances like fentanyl affect individuals and communities, creating a level of emotional truth that cannot be manufactured through conventional filmmaking techniques or academic study of social problems. The director's approach to casting reflects his commitment to working with actors who bring similar levels of authenticity and personal connection to their roles, frequently collaborating with performers who have their own experiences with the subjects his films explore. This casting philosophy creates ensemble performances where actors are not simply portraying characters, but drawing on personal understanding of the circumstances and emotional states they are representing on screen, resulting in performances that feel genuine rather than constructed. Swab's filmography demonstrates consistent commitment to exploring themes of addiction, crime, abuse, and redemption through stories that refuse to sentimentalize or simplify complex social problems, instead presenting nuanced portrayals that acknowledge the humanity of people involved in illegal activities, while never excusing the harm that criminal behavior causes to individuals and communities. His previous films like Body Brokers, which exposed corruption in the addiction treatment industry, and Candyland, which examined exploitation within sex work and drug culture, establish a body of work dedicated to revealing uncomfortable truths about American society's failures to address systemic problems. The collaborative relationship between Swab and his frequent cinematographer, Will Stone, demonstrates how effective partnerships between directors and key creative personnel can create consistent visual approaches that support thematic goals while adapting to the specific requirements of different projects. Their shared commitment to documentary-style realism creates visual languages that serve the social commentary aspects of Swab's films, while maintaining the dramatic impact necessary for narrative feature films that must engage audiences emotionally as well as intellectually. The director's working methods reflect the kind of guerrilla filmmaking approach that allows independent productions to achieve authentic results within limited budget constraints, often filming in real locations, with minimal crew and equipment to capture genuine environments, rather than constructed sets that might compromise the realism essential to his storytelling goals. This approach requires flexibility and creativity from all participants but produces results that feel organic and Swab's relationship with Tulsa as both his hometown and frequent filming location provides geographical authenticity that supports the social commentary in his films, while also creating economic benefits for local communities through film production employment and location fees. The decision to film King Ivory in Tulsa reflects both practical considerations about budget and the logistics and artistic choices about maintaining connection. The director's marriage to actress and frequent collaborator Sam Quarton creates a personal and professional partnership that provides continuity across multiple projects, while also demonstrating how family relationships can support, rather than complicate, demanding film production schedules. Their shared commitment to socially conscious filmmaking creates stability that allows for consistent exploration of related themes across different projects and time. The evolution of Swab's filmmaking techniques across multiple projects demonstrates growing sophistication in how independent directors can address serious social problems through popular entertainment formats, learning to balance authenticity with accessibility while building audiences who trust his commitment to honest portrayal of difficult subjects. The progression from his early work through King Ivory shows increasing confidence in tackling complex The director's approach to violence and criminal activity reflects mature understanding of how entertainment media can either glorify or critically examine illegal behavior, consistently choosing to emphasize consequences and human cost rather than excitement or admiration for criminal enterprises. This moral clarity provides foundation for films that can serve educational purposes while maintaining the dramatic tension necessary for commercial success. Swab's commitment to extensive research with law enforcement officers, former criminals, addiction treatment providers, and affected families demonstrates the kind of preparation necessary for creating authentic portrayals of complex social problems, going beyond surface-level understanding to develop deep appreciation for the various perspectives and experiences of people involved in drug trafficking. This research supports this research. The director's personal recovery from addiction provides ongoing motivation for creating films that might contribute to broader social understanding of substance abuse and criminal justice issues, using his platform as a filmmaker to raise awareness about problems that directly affected his own life and continue to impact communities across America. This personal investment creates urgency and commitment that distinguishes his work from purely commercial entertainment. The international recognition that Swab's films receive through festival screenings and critical acclaim demonstrates how American independent cinema can address domestic social problems while creating work that resonates with global audiences who face similar challenges in their own societies. The universal themes of addiction, crime, and redemption transcend national boundaries, while the specific details of American law enforcement and the director's production company relationships and financing strategies reflect the ongoing challenges that independent filmmakers face in developing socially conscious projects that require significant resources while addressing subjects that may not guarantee commercial success. The ability to consistently secure funding for multiple projects demonstrates both the quality of his work and the importance that investors and distributors place on authentic storytelling of a contemporary. Swab's influence on other filmmakers working in similar subject areas creates ripple effects that extend beyond his individual projects to broader trends in how American independent cinema approaches crime, addiction, and social justice themes. The success of his films in festival circuits and critical reception encourages other directors to pursue similar combinations of authenticity, social relevance, and entertainment value. The long-term impact of Swab's work will likely depend on how effectively his films contribute to broader social discourse about drug policy, criminal justice reform, and community responses to addiction, as well as their influence on subsequent filmmakers who choose to address similar subjects. The director's commitment to truth-telling about difficult subjects creates lasting value that extends beyond the immediate entertainment provided by his films to ongoing contributions to public understanding and policy discussions. The comprehensive examination of King Ivory within the broader landscape of contemporary American crime cinema reveals how independent filmmakers, like John Swab, are reshaping the genre by prioritizing authenticity and social relevance. The film represents part of a growing movement within independent cinema that seeks to address pressing social issues through entertainment narratives that educate audiences while providing the dramatic satisfaction necessary for commercial viability. The production history of King Ivory reflects the challenges and opportunities that characterize modern independent filmmaking, where limited budgets require creative solutions and efficient resource management, while social media and the successful completion and distribution of the film demonstrates how committed filmmakers can achieve professional results within financial constraints that would have made similar projects impossible in previous eras of film production. The collaborative production model that Swab employs for King Ivory and his other films represents an alternative to traditional Hollywood studio systems, creating opportunities for artists who prioritize creative control and social consciousness. The long-term relationships that he maintains with key creative personnel, including cinematographer Will Stone and actor Sam Quarton, provide consistency and efficiency that allows independent productions to compete with larger budget films in terms of technical quality and artistic achievement. The financing strategies necessary for socially conscious independent films like King Ivory reflect ongoing changes in how movies are funded and distributed, with traditional studio financing becoming less available for projects that address controversial subjects, while alternative funding sources, including private investors and international sales, create new possibilities for filmmakers willing to work within limited budgets and accept smaller profit margins in exchange for creative freedom. The casting approach for King Ivory demonstrates how independent films can attract talented actors who are interested in challenging material and meaningful storytelling, even when financial compensation may be limited compared to major studio productions. The participation of experienced performers like Ben Foster, Melissa Leo, and James Badgedale reflects the growing recognition that independent films often provide more interesting and complex roles than entertainment productions. The technical achievements of King Ivory represent the democratization of professional filmmaking technology, with digital cameras, editing systems, and post-production tools, allowing independent productions to achieve visual and audio quality that rivals much larger budget films. The success of Swab and his collaborators in creating polished professional results within limited budgets provides a model for other independent filmmakers, while demonstrating how technological advances have reduced the barriers to entry for serious filmmaking. The distribution strategy for King Ivory reflects the changing landscape of film exhibition, where traditional theatrical releases are supplemented by streaming platforms, video-on-demand services, and international sales that create multiple revenue streams for independent productions. The festival circuit premiere provides critical validation and industry recognition, while also creating opportunities for building audience awareness and critical buzz that support subsequent commercial release. The educational applications of King Ivory extend beyond its entertainment value to potential use in academic settings, community organizations, and policy discussions where authentic portrayals of drug trafficking and addiction can contribute to informed conversations about effective responses to these problems. The film's combination of entertainment and education creates opportunities for reaching audiences who might not otherwise engage with serious discussions about drug policy and criminal. The international relevance of King Ivory reflects how drug trafficking and addiction represent global problems that affect communities in different countries with varying degrees of severity and different policy approaches. The film's specific focus on American law enforcement and criminal justice systems provides comparative perspectives for international audiences, while the universal themes of family destruction, addiction, and crime transcend national boundaries. The cultural impact of King Ivory will likely depend on its ability to influence public discourse about drug policy and criminal justice reform, creating awareness and understanding that contributes to more informed policy discussions and community responses to addiction. The film's realistic portrayal of law enforcement challenges and criminal organization sophistication provides information that can inform debates about the effectiveness of current approaches. The artistic legacy of King Ivory within John Swab's developing filmography represents another step in the evolution of a filmmaker whose commitment to authenticity and social consciousness has created a distinctive voice within contemporary American cinema. The film's success in combining entertainment value with serious social commentary provides validation for Swab's approach, while encouraging other filmmakers to pursue similar combinations. The production innovations necessary for creating King Ivory within its budget constraints demonstrate how independent filmmakers can achieve impressive results through careful planning, efficient execution, and creative problem-solving. The successful completion of the film provides practical lessons for other independent productions while demonstrating that financial limitations need not compromise artistic vision or technical quality when filmmakers are willing to prioritize substance over spectacle. The critical reception patterns for King Ivory reflect broader trends in how contemporary audiences respond to socially conscious entertainment, with appreciation for authentic storytelling and meaningful themes balanced against expectations for dramatic tension and entertainment value. The film's success in satisfying both criteria demonstrates the potential for independent cinema to address serious subjects while maintaining commercial viability. The long-term influence of King Ivory on subsequent filmmaking will likely depend on its success in inspiring other directors to pursue similar combinations of authenticity, social relevance, and entertainment value. The film's demonstration that independent productions can address controversial subjects while achieving critical recognition and commercial success provides encouragement for filmmakers who want to use their craft for social commentary and community engagement. The collaborative relationships that characterize the production of King Ivory reflect broader trends toward collective filmmaking approaches that prioritize shared artistic vision over traditional hierarchical production structures. The success of these collaborative methods provides models for other independent productions, while demonstrating how creative partnerships can enhance both artistic quality and production efficiency. The technological resources employed in the production of King Ivory demonstrate how digital filmmaking tools have democratized professional quality production, allowing independent filmmakers to achieve results that would have required much larger budgets in previous eras. The effective use of these technologies provides practical guidance for other independent productions while showing how creative application of available tools can overcome financial limitations. The audience development strategies for King Ivory reflect the changing landscape of film marketing, where social media, word of mouth, and critical recognition often prove more effective than traditional advertising campaigns for independent films addressing serious subjects. The success of these alternative marketing approaches provides lessons for other independent filmmakers while demonstrating how authentic storytelling can build dedicated audiences. The policy implications of King Ivory extend beyond its immediate entertainment value to potential influence on community discussions about drug enforcement, addiction treatment, and criminal justice reform. The film's realistic portrayal of these issues creates opportunities for informed debate while challenging audiences to consider the effectiveness of current approaches and the need for innovative solutions to persistent social problems. The educational value of King Ivory encompasses both its specific information about drug trafficking and law enforcement and its broader lessons about filmmaking as a tool for social commentary and community engagement. The film provides examples of how entertainment media can serve educational purposes while maintaining artistic integrity and commercial viability, creating models for other filmmakers interested in addressing social issues throughout popular culture. The international distribution potential for King Ivory reflects the global nature of drug trafficking and addiction problems, with audiences in different countries likely to find relevant connections to their own social circumstances, while gaining insights into American approaches to these challenges. The film's combination of universal themes and specific cultural details creates opportunities for cross-cultural dialogue about shared problems and different solutions. The festival circuit success of King Ivory demonstrates the continued importance of film festivals in providing platforms for independent films that address serious subjects, creating opportunities for critical recognition and audience development that support subsequent commercial release. The festival premiere provides validation of artistic merit while also generating industry attention and media coverage that contributes to broader public awareness. The mentorship potential of King Ivory and John Swab's broader filmmaking career provides inspiration and practical guidance for emerging filmmakers who want to address social issues through their work. The demonstration that independent films can achieve both artistic recognition and commercial success while maintaining commitment to authenticity and social consciousness creates models for sustainable careers in socially engaged filmmaking. The production legacy of King Ivory within the context of independent cinema represents another example of how committed filmmakers can create meaningful work that contributes to social discourse while entertaining audiences and supporting the careers of cast and crew members. The film's success validates the independent film model while demonstrating the continued viability of auteur-driven productions that prioritize artistic vision over commercial formula. The cinematographic evolution evident throughout John Swab's complete filmography reveals a director who has steadily refined his visual approach to crime narratives while maintaining unwavering commitment to authentic storytelling that addresses America's most pressing social problems. From his early short film Judas's Chariot through his breakthrough feature Let Me Make You a Martyr to his recent masterwork King Ivory, Swab has developed a distinctive aesthetic that combines documentary realism with stylized dramatic elements that serve his thematic goals without compromising the authenticity that defines his work. The progression from Let Me Make You a Martyr through Run with the Hunted Body Brokers, Ida Red, Candyland, Little Dixie, One Day as a Lion, Long Gone Heroes, and finally King Ivory demonstrates increasing sophistication in handling complex, multi-character narratives while maintaining the intimate character focus that makes his films emotionally resonant rather than simply intellectually engaged. Each project has built upon the lessons learned from previous efforts while pushing into new thematic territory that expands the scope of his social commentary. The recurring collaboration with actors like Melissa Leo, Frank Grillo, Sam Quarton, and Mark Boone Jr. creates an informal repertory company that brings continuity and shared understanding to projects that address related themes across different stories and time periods. These ongoing relationships allow for deeper character development and more nuanced performances as actors and director develop shorthand communication that serves the efficiency necessary for independent film production, while enhancing the authenticity that distinguishes Swab's work from more conventional crime thrillers. The technical team consistency, particularly with cinematographer Will Stone, creates visual continuity across multiple. The partnership between Swab and Stone has produced a distinctive visual language that supports the social commentary aspects of the films while maintaining the dramatic impact necessary for commercial entertainment. Their collaborative approach demonstrates how effective creative partnerships can develop signature aesthetics that become recognizable elements of particular filmmakers' work. The geographical consistency of filming primarily in Oklahoma reflects both practical considerations about budget and location availability and artistic choices about maintaining authentic connections between stories and the specific communities where they take place. This commitment to place creates economic benefits for local film industries while ensuring that the social problems addressed in the films are grounded in real environments rather than The thematic progression across Swab's filmography reveals systematic exploration of interconnected social problems that affect American communities, with each film contributing to a comprehensive examination of how addiction, crime, corruption, and systemic failure create conditions that perpetuate cycles of violence and exploitation. The filmmaker's approach treats each project as part of a larger investigation into the root causes of social problems, rather than simply isolated entertainment products that happen to address serious subjects. The production methodology that characterizes Swab's approach has evolved from extremely low budget, raking on early projects to more sophisticated independent productions that achieve professional production values while maintaining the efficiency and authenticity. This evolution demonstrates how successful independent filmmakers can gradually expand their resources and capabilities while preserving the creative control and artistic vision that distinguish their work from mainstream commercial productions. The distribution strategies for Swab's films reflect the changing landscape of independent film exhibition, where traditional theatrical releases are supplemented by streaming platforms, video-on-demand services, and international sales that create multiple revenue streams for productions that might struggle to find audiences through conventional distribution channels. The success of these alternative distribution approaches provides models for other independent filmmakers. The critical reception patterns across Swab's filmography show consistent appreciation for his commitment to authentic portrayal of difficult subjects, while also revealing how different audiences respond to various aspects of his work. The critical consensus acknowledges his unique voice within contemporary American cinema, while recognizing the challenges inherent in balancing entertainment value with serious social commentary in ways that satisfy both critics and the festival circuit success that multiple Swab films have achieved provides validation of their artistic merit while creating platforms for reaching audiences who are specifically interested in socially conscious filmmaking. The international recognition demonstrates how stories about American social problems can resonate with global audiences while providing insights into how different cultures approach similar challenges. The educational applications of Swab's films extend beyond their immediate entertainment value to potential use in academic settings, community organizations, and policy discussions where authentic portrayals of addiction, crime, and social problems can contribute to informed conversations about effective responses. The combination of entertainment and education creates opportunities for reaching audiences who might not otherwise engage. The influence that Swab's work has had on other filmmakers working in similar subject areas creates ripple effects that extend beyond his individual projects to broader trends in how contemporary independent cinema approaches crime, addiction, and social justice themes. The demonstration that independent films can achieve critical recognition and commercial success while maintaining commitment to authenticity and social consciousness encourages other directors to pursue. The personal investment that drives Swab's filmmaking career creates urgency and emotional authenticity that distinguishes his work from purely commercial entertainment products. His own recovery from addiction and transformation, from street life to successful filmmaker, provides ongoing motivation for creating work that might contribute to broader social understanding, while also serving as inspiration for people facing similar challenges in their own lives. The production company relationships and financing strategies that Swab has developed reflect the ongoing challenges that independent filmmakers face in securing resources for socially conscious projects that may not guarantee commercial success. The consistency of his ability to secure funding for multiple projects demonstrates both the quality of his work and the growing recognition that authentic storytelling about contemporary problems can find audiences. The international distribution and recognition that Swab's films receive create opportunities for cross-cultural dialogue about shared problems while highlighting the specific characteristics of American approaches to drug enforcement, criminal justice, and social services. The universal themes of addiction, crime, and redemption transcend national boundaries while the detailed portrayal of American law enforcement proceeds. The mentorship and example that Swab provides for emerging filmmakers interested in socially conscious storytelling creates lasting influence that extends beyond his individual projects to encourage a new generation of directors who prioritize authenticity and social relevance over conventional commercial considerations. His demonstration that independent films can address serious subjects while maintaining value and achieving critical recognition provides. The technological evolution evident across Swab's filmography reflects the democratization of professional filmmaking tools, with digital cameras, editing systems, and post-production capabilities allowing independent productions to achieve visual and audio quality that rivals much larger budget films. The effective use of these technologies provides practical guidance for other independent filmmakers, while demonstrating how creative application of available resources can overcome financial limitations. The collaborative relationships that characterize Swab's productions reflect broader trends toward collective filmmaking approaches that prioritize shared artistic vision over traditional hierarchical production structures. The success of these collaborative methods provides models for other independent productions, while demonstrating how creative partnerships can enhance both artistic quality and production efficiency within limited budget constraints. The long-term cultural impact of Swab's developing body of work will likely depend on its effectiveness in contributing to meaningful changes in public discourse and policy approaches to the social problems his films address. The cumulative effect of multiple projects examining different aspects of addiction, crime, and systemic failure creates comprehensive coverage of interconnected issues while demonstrating the persistence and depth. The legacy that King Ivory represents within this broader context demonstrates how individual films can serve as culminating expressions of themes and techniques that directors develop across multiple projects, bringing together the artistic maturity, technical sophistication, and social consciousness that define major independent filmmaking. The film stands as both entertainment and social commentary, while providing practical demonstration of how committed filmmakers can address serious contemporary problems through popular culture formats that reach broad audiences while maintaining artistic integrity and social relevance. The comprehensive analysis of King Ivory within the broader context of contemporary independent cinema reveals how the film functions as both a culminating achievement in John Swab's developing filmography and a significant contribution to the ongoing evolution of socially conscious crime thrillers that address America's most pressing contemporary problem. The film represents the intersection of authentic personal experience, sophisticated filmmaking technique, and urgent social commentary that defines the most effective examples of independent cinema's engagement with public policy issues. The narrative structure of King Ivory demonstrates advanced storytelling sophistication that builds upon techniques developed across Swab's previous projects, showing how independent filmmakers can achieve complex multi-character narratives that rival the scope and ambition of major studio productions, while maintaining the intimate character focus that gives independent films their distinctive emotional resonance. The successful management of multiple storylines involving law enforcement officers, criminal organizations, families affected by addiction, and community members struggling with the consequences of drug trafficking creates a comprehensive portrait of the fentanyl epidemic that acknowledges its complexity while remaining accessible to general audiences. The character development throughout King Ivory reflects mature understanding of how to create authentic human beings rather than symbols or stereotypes, with each performer bringing depth and specificity to roles that could easily become generic representations of familiar crime thriller archetypes. The casting choices demonstrate how independent films can attract accomplished actors who are interested in challenging material that provides opportunity. The thematic exploration in King Ivory extends beyond surface-level crime thriller conventions to examine fundamental questions about American society's approach to drug problems, criminal justice, and community responses to addiction. The film's refusal to provide simple answers or easy solutions reflects mature understanding of how complex social problems require nuanced analysis rather than ideological positions that might satisfy particular audiences but fail to acknowledge the full scope of challenges facing communities dealing with synthetic drug epidemic. The technical achievements in King Ivory represent the culmination of collaborative relationships between Swab and key creative personnel who have worked together across multiple projects, developing shared understanding of how to achieve authentic visual and auditory storytelling within independent film budget constraints. The cinematography by Will Stone creates documentary realism that supports the social commentary aspects of the film, while maintaining the dramatic impact necessary for commercial entertainment, demonstrating how technical choices can serve thematic goals without compromising entertainment value. The production methodology employed for King Ivory reflects years of experience in independent filmmaking that allows for efficient resource management and creative problem-solving that maximizes production values while working within financial limitations that require careful planning and flexible execution. The successful completion of the film within its budget demonstrates how experienced independent filmmakers can achieve professional results that compete effectively with larger budget productions. The distribution strategy for King Ivory utilizes multiple platforms and market segments to reach diverse audiences who might engage with the film for different reasons, from entertainment seekers interested in crime thrillers to community organizations and educational institutions that could use the film for social awareness and policy discussion purposes. The festival circuit premiere provides critical validation and industry recognition, while creating opportunities for building audience awareness and media attention that supports subsequent commercial release through traditional and streaming platforms. The educational applications of King Ivory extend beyond its entertainment value to potential use in academic settings, community organizations, law enforcement training programs, and policy discussions where authentic portrayals of drug trafficking and addiction can contribute to informed conversations about effective responses to synthetic drug problems. The combination of entertainment and education creates opportunities for reaching audiences who might not otherwise engage with serious discussions about criminal justice reform and public health approaches to addiction. The international relevance of King Ivory reflects how drug trafficking and addiction represent global challenges that affect communities in different countries with varying policy approaches and enforcement capability. The film's specific focus on American law enforcement and criminal justice systems provides comparative perspectives for international audiences, while the universal themes of family destruction, community breakdown, and institutional failure transcend national boundaries and cultural differences. The cultural impact of King Ivory will likely depend on its effectiveness in influencing public discourse about drug policy and criminal justice approaches, creating awareness and understanding that contributes to more informed policy discussions and community responses to synthetic drug problems. The realistic portrayal of law enforcement challenges and criminal organization sophistication provides information that can inform debates about the effectiveness of current strategies and the need for alternative approaches that address both supply and demand factors in drug trafficking. The artistic legacy of King Ivory within John Swab's developing body of work represents another step in the evolution of a filmmaker whose commitment to authenticity and social consciousness has created a distinctive voice within contemporary American independent cinema. The film's success in combining entertainment value with serious social commentary provides validation for Swab's approach, while encouraging other filmmakers to pursue similar combinations of artistic ambition and social relevance that serve both commercial and educational purposes. The production innovations necessary for creating King Ivory within its budget constraints demonstrate how independent filmmakers can achieve impressive results through careful planning, efficient execution, and creative problem-solving that maximizes the impact of available resources. The successful completion of the film provides practical lessons for other independent productions while demonstrating that financial limitations need not compromise artistic. The collaborative relationships that characterize the production of King Ivory reflect broader trends toward collective filmmaking approaches that prioritize shared artistic vision over traditional hierarchical production structures that may inhibit creativity and efficiency. The success of these collaborative methods provides models for other independent productions while demonstrating how creative partnerships can enhance both artistic quality. The critical reception patterns for King Ivory reflect broader trends in how contemporary audiences respond to socially conscious entertainment, with appreciation for authentic storytelling and meaningful themes balanced against expectations for dramatic tension and commercial entertainment value. The film's success in satisfying both criteria demonstrates the potential for independent cinema to address serious subjects while maintaining commercial viability and critical recognition that supports filmmakers. The technological resources employed in the production of King Ivory demonstrate how digital filmmaking tools have democratized professional quality production, allowing independent filmmakers to achieve visual and audio quality that rivals much larger budget films through creative application of available technology and efficient production techniques. The effective use of these resources provides practical guidance for other independent filmmakers while showing how creative problem-solving can overcome isolation. The long-term influence of King Ivory on subsequent filmmaking will likely depend on its success in inspiring other directors to pursue similar combinations of authenticity, social relevance, and entertainment value that serve both commercial and educational purposes. The film's demonstration that independent productions can address controversial subjects while achieving critical recognition and commercial success provides encouragement for filmmakers who want to use their craft for social commentary and community engagement rather than purely commercial entertainment. The audience development strategies for King Ivory reflect the changing landscape of film marketing, where social media engagement, word-of-mouth promotion, and critical recognition often prove more effective than traditional advertising campaigns for independent films addressing serious subjects. The success of these alternative marketing approaches provides lessons for other independent filmmakers while demonstrating how authentic storytelling can build dedicated audiences without massive promotional budgets or conventional marketing campaigns that may not effectively reach target demographics. The policy implications of King Ivory extend beyond its immediate entertainment value to potential influence on community discussions about drug enforcement strategies, addiction treatment approaches, and criminal justice reform initiatives that address root causes of drug problems, rather than simply focusing on punishment and enforcement. The film's realistic portrayal of these complex issues creates opportunities for informed debate, while challenging audiences to consider the effectiveness of current approaches and the need for innovative solutions to persistent social problems that affect entire communities. The festival circuit success of King Ivory demonstrates the continued importance of film festivals in providing platforms for independent films that address serious subjects, creating opportunities for critical recognition and audience development that support subsequent commercial release while also facilitating industry networking and distribution opportunities. The festival premiere provides validation of artistic merit while generating media coverage and industry attention that contributes to brighter public awareness. The mentorship potential of King Ivory and John Swab's broader filmmaking career provides inspiration and practical guidance for emerging filmmakers who want to address social issues through their work while building sustainable careers in independent cinema. The demonstration that independent films can achieve both artistic recognition and commercial success while maintaining commitment to authenticity and social consciousness creates models for career development that prioritize meaningful content over conventional commercial considerations while still achieving financial viability and industry recognition.